Bryant Young, Alan Faneca, Chuck Howley, Ken Riley. Now, have you ever heard of these dudes before? I damn sure haven't, because they played in the NFL decades before I was even born. You know what they all have in common, though? In the last 3 or 4 years, they have been voted into the NFL Hall of Fame. Unfortunately, they don't have a lot in common with Bill Belichick, because it was announced yesterday that Bill Belichick was rejected for the Hall of Fame. What? Excuse me? Bill Belichick, the dude who's been a part of 8 Super Bowls. Bill Belichick, the dude who won 6 Super Bowls as the head coach of the New England Patriots and was responsible for creating the greatest dynasty in the history of the league. Quite possibly the greatest dynasty in the history of sports. No disrespect to Michael Jordan, Phil Jackson, the Chicago Bulls. They dominated the 90s, won 6 titles in 8 years, and they probably would have won 8 straight if Michael Jordan hadn't temporarily retired. The Bulls had a dominant 6-year run, but Bill Belichick and the Patriots, they dominated for almost 20 years. Throughout the 2000s and the 2010s, there was a lot of change in the NFL, but the one constant was the New England Patriots. And they dominated with the greatest quarterbacks the history of the league has ever seen. Every year, you knew the Patriots were going to be a contender. And somehow, Bill Belichick is rejected for the Hall of Fame? Arguably the greatest coach in the history of the league is rejected for the Hall of Fame. The question is why? The doofus voters in the media, they have polished the turd. They have given their excuses as to why Bill Belichick was rejected. But Uncle KC is wondering if there's another reason. Make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Link to the main channels in the description below. In the last 24 hours, the NFL has tried to convince us that Shedeur Sanders is a Pro Bowler and Bill Belichick is not a Hall of Famer. According to some in the media, Bill Belichick was denied the Hall of Fame because he's a cheater. This man has no integrity. He's a cheater! He was spying on the New York Jets. He was deflating balls. If this were college football, Bill Belichick would be banned. The NFL is the most competitive league in the country. Every coach is looking for an edge. Every coach is looking for an advantage. This same media claimed that Sean Payton was a cheater over that doofus Bountygate scandal. You really expect me to believe that other teams aren't spying on their opponents? You expect me to believe Bill Belichick was the only one spying? Even with that being the case, that is not enough to keep him out of the Hall of Fame. According to Bill Belichick, he is being rejected due to political reasons. Now, ESPN didn't specify what he meant by political reasons, but I think this is the obvious answer. For starters, Bill Belichick really hasn't done himself any favors in the last couple of years. He's 73 years old, dating a woman that's young enough to be his great-granddaughter. Remember the interview that Bill Belichick and Jordan Hudson did with 60 Minutes, where Bill Belichick was completely emasculated? Maybe the NFL wants to distance themselves from Billy. Maybe they feel he's too embarrassing right now to go into the Hall of Fame. But I'm wondering if his association with Donald Trump could be the reason for this rejection. It's no secret that mainstream sports media, they're no fan of the Trumper. Back in 2016, Bill Belichick wrote a letter to the Trumper praising his leadership. 2021, Trump was going to give Bill Belichick the Presidential Medal of Freedom, but Billy denied the award after the riot on January 6th, or as the mainstream media prefers to call it, the insurrection that forever changed America. Bill Belichick and Don Trump had been friends for years, so I'm wondering if his association with the Trumper is part of the reason that Bill Belichick was rejected for the Hall of Fame. Never underestimate the pettiness of the mainstream media. Me personally, I separate the art from the artist. For example, I hated when LeBron James injected the NBA with mythical racism. But if I had a vote for the Hall of Fame, there's absolutely no way I am rejecting LeBron James. What he does off the court has nothing to do with what he has accomplished on the court. Same thing with Bill Belichick. His relationship with Jordan Hudson, his friendship with Don Trump, that has nothing to do with winning 6 Super Bowls. That has nothing to do with what he and Tom Brady were able to accomplish. You can claim that Bill Belichick was only successful because of Tom Brady, but last I checked, football was a team sport. Tom Brady was not winning Super Bowls all by himself. More than likely, we'll probably never know the real reason for this, but I am not biting into the shit sandwich. I'm not believing that deflated balls and spying on calls is the reason that Bill Belichick was denied. Sound off in the comments below. I'll see you guys on the main channel.